I think you're highlighting that these Ethereum treasuries aren't just like an alternative to an ETH ETF. They are playing a really important role in the ecosystem.
Right. One thing I can't figure out, Tom, and I think some ETH bulls are with me on this, is how in the world ETH is still trading under 4K when you just talked about in a month's time you now have 3 billion in ETH in your in the Bitmain treasury. So 3 billion in ETH purchases. How does that not move ETH price be like 4K and above? Like, how are you still getting a bid at 3,500 ETH? Where's all this ETH coming from, and how is it not moving our price here?
Well, we've learned a lot. I don't really want to say too much because, as you can imagine, we've probably been one of the largest buyers of ETH, and we've learned a lot. And I would say in the short term, where fair value for Ethereum does not play into what ETH does short term. I mean, look at it. Last week, it got to 3,300 on because there are folks who have liquidation levels, or they're doing pair trades, or people think Ethereum's a dead chain, so they're betting on another chain and trying to force levels of liquidation. I think that that's the dynamic near term, but wasn't that Bitcoin at $1,000 in 2017? Like, actually, if people go back to 2017, because I think Ethereum is having its Bitcoin 2017 moment this year, where Wall Street is finally getting behind ETH. Bitcoin was 1,000 in the early part of 2017, and it wasn't until August, and then it went straight up. I mean, literally went straight up.
We've definitely haven't seen this level of Wall Street interest in ETH, the asset, and Ethereum, the network, in like 4 or 5 years now. And I mean, we're seeing the appetite from Wall Street coming in all different corners of the Ethereum ecosystem. When people ask you about why buy an ETH treasury company over a Bitcoin treasury company, if they're shopping around, because there are treasury company options out there. There's been MicroStrategy. There's not only just MicroStrategy for Bitcoin. There's others. And then, like as you alluded to, there's like a Hype treasury company. There's an Athena treasury company. So when you explain why specifically ETH, like what is resonant about Ether, the asset, and the treasury company model over something like Bitcoin or any other alternative treasury company?
Well, first, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is the way, and our work on the Fundstrat side shows Bitcoin can get to the $1.5 million per coin. So Bitcoin still has a huge story ahead. Yeah, but Bitcoin and Ethereum operate in different parts of how the world is financializing. And that's a principal difference to me, because Ethereum represents the world financializing onto the blockchain, which is not Bitcoin's goal, and the AI world, creating basically a digitally native way to bridge the real world and digital security. So that's, to me, why someone wants to own Ethereum treasuries, because I would buy MicroStrategy if I was looking at this. And by the way, it is a granny shot in the Fundstrat ETF. But the reason is that MicroStrategy is growing your Bitcoin holdings every day. So you're going to outperform Bitcoin. Ethereum treasuries are really the only way for a US equity investor to get exposure to Ethereum, unless they're buying ETH directly or an ETH ETF. But if you're an institution and this is one of the biggest themes, I don't think they're going to just say, well, in my fund, my $50 billion large cap fund, Ethereum's the biggest trade, so I'll buy JPMorgan. They might, but they're better off saying, how can I be directly exposed to Ethereum? And they can't really buy an Ethereum ETF because that's not within the parameters of their fund. So I think, to me, the US equity market professional investor looks at Ethereum treasuries as really the only way to get exposure to ETH as a macro trade. And that's why, you've seen like the Cathie Woods make a big investment in Bitmine, and Bill Miller today we announced that he made a major investment last week into BitMine. So they're institutional investors. They're both of those folks are OGs in crypto, realize this is the best way to have macro exposure to Ethereum.
In addition to just like the MNAV premium, which has mostly been MicroStrategy's strategy for bootstrapping itself into buying more Bitcoin and accumulating more Bitcoin, Ether treasury companies have a bit of extra tools in their tool belt, simply by nature of what Ethereum is, right? Ethereum has like an on-chain DeFi ecosystem that Ethereum treasury companies can actually leverage.